Hello everyone! I hope you're ready for another adventure, because today Wayne begins reading Runaway Ralph. Always remember that as we go through these amazing stories and read these outstanding adventures, all you have to do is press the CC button in your YouTube link to be able to follow along with the words. Now I believe that Madam Owl will be perfect to join us for today's adventure. Now that Madam Owl is here, let's jump in. Chapter 1, Runaway Ralph. Ralph hears a distant bugle. The small brown mouse named Ralph, who was hiding under the grandfather clock, did not have much longer to wait before he could ride his motorcycle. The clock struck 8 already, and then 8:30. Ralph was the only mouse in the Mountain View Inn, a rundown hotel in the foothills of Sierra Nevada, who owned a motorcycle. It was a mouse-sized red motorcycle, a present from a boy named Keith, who had been a guest in room 215 over the 4th of July weekend. Ralph was proud of his motorcycle, but his brothers and sisters said he was selfish. "I'm not," said Ralph. "Keith gave the motorcycle to me." That evening, while Ralph waited under the clock and watched the television set across the lobby, a man and a woman followed by a medium-sized boy walked into the hotel. They had a rumpled look of people who had driven many miles that day. The boy was wearing jeans, cowboy boots, and a white t-shirt with the words Happy Acres Camp stenciled across the front. Ralph observed the boy with interest. He was the right kind of boy, a boy sure to like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Since the day Keith had left the hotel, Ralph had longed for crumbs of peanut butter and jelly sandwich. A grating, grinding noise came from the works of the grandfather clock. Ralph clapped his paws over his ears. The clock grumbled and groaned and managed to strike the hour. 9 o'clock! The time almost had come. The stroke of 9 was followed by the slow, sad notes of music that lingered and died mysteriously in the distance every night this time. "Did you hear that?" the man asked the boy. "It was the bugle at camp playing taps." "So that's what the music is," thought Ralph, who was puzzled over these notes all summer. When the boy did not answer, his mother said, "Come on, Graf, cheer up. You're going to have a lot of fun at camp." "Maybe," answered Graf, "but I doubt it." The father looked annoyed. "You won't have any fun if you take that attitude," he said, and he went to the desk to inquire about a room with an extra cot for the night. Ralph could not understand the boy's behavior. He had often heard other guests wearing the same kind of t-shirts speak of the place called camp, but unlike the boy, they always sounded eager and excited to be going there. Ralph did not know exactly what a camp was, but since medium-sized boys and girls went there, he thought it must be a place where people ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The desk clerk summoned old Matt, the elderly bellboy, to show the family up to their room. As Matt picked up the suitcase and led the way to the elevator, he said to Graf, "Well, young fellow, what are you going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Apple pie or chocolate cake?" Matt, who was not always popular with parents, was always liked by children. The boy faintly smiled at Matt's joke as he followed the old man into the elevator. What the boy needs is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, thought Ralph. When Matt returned to the lobby, Ralph watched him go out into the hotel porch, where he stood for a few minutes among the empty rocking chairs for his nightly look at the stars before he retired for the night. The night clerk, a college student hired for the summer, came on duty and settled on the couch to read a thick book. Ralph's time almost had come. Sure enough, the clerk read a few pages and then lay down on the couch with the book facing on his chest and closed his eyes. Ralph was free for the night. He darted under the television set, where he had hidden his motorcycle and crash helmet that Keith had made from half a ping-pong ball lined with thistledown. He already had polished the chrome on his motorcycle by licking his paws and rubbing them over the dull spots. Now he let his crash helmet on his head, snapped the rubber band under his chin and held it in place, and taking care to keep his tail off the spokes, mounted the motorcycle. Next, he inhaled deeply, expanding with a sound, the only sound that will make a miniature motorcycle go, sped out from under the television set and across the carpet. Ralph rode across the lobby and into the hall. Up and down the hall Ralph zoomed, and the joy of speed made up for long hours of hiding in dusty corners waiting for night to come. Up and down the hall rode Ralph until he was too tired to take another big breath. Then he parked his motorcycle in a shady corner, hung his crash helmet on the handlebars, and flattened himself, slipped under a door into his favorite room in the inn. It was a stuffy room, never very light in the daytime, locked when the last person left for the night. It was furnished with small tables and a row of high stools. The room was Ralph's favorites because he always could find peanuts on the floor, sometimes popcorn, and once in a great while a stuffed olive. Tonight he gobbled up his fill of peanuts, wishing he had a little grape jelly to go with them, and managed, in spite of being somewhat fatter than when he entered, to squeeze out again. Daredevil Ralph rode perilously close to the dangling hand of the night clerk sleeping on the couch before the length of the hall. Ralph was exhilarated by speed, danger, and his own daring. Back to the lobby. As Ralph paused to take another deep breath, his sharp ears caught the approaching squeaks of his little brothers and sisters and cousins, who rarely ventured into the lobby because they were afraid of the stuffed deer and owls on the mantelpiece. Drat, swore Ralph softly to himself. Ralph was in the process of taking a deep breath so he could make a fast getaway when his mother and Uncle Lester scurried from under the chair in front of him. Ralph's deep breath came out as a poof and his motorcycle stopped. "Ralph," said Uncle Lester, "it is time we had a talk." Ralph did not answer. He did not want to talk. Neither did he want to listen. But he knew that he could not have his uncle's lectures. He only hoped it would end before the little mice managed to get down the stairs. "You can't go living like this," said Uncle Lester, "running around the lobby watching television all day and tearing around on that motorcycle all night." "Yes," agreed Ralph's mother, a most fearful mouse whose whiskers trembled instantly with fright. She was afraid of people, vacuum cleaners, owls, cats, traps, and poisoned grain. She quivered at the slightest sound. Ralph stared at the carpet. "Look at you," said Uncle Lester. "Lint all over your whiskers." Ralph brushed his whiskers with one paw. "And you're getting fat from eating peanuts you pick up in that place," continued Uncle Lester. "A bar is no place for a young mouse. You will fall in with evil companions," said his mother. "They will lead you into trouble." "No one can lead me any place," said Ralph, "because I can go faster on my bike." By now the little brothers and sisters and cousins had gathered to listen wide-eyed with interest and pleasure. One cousin, braver than the rest, said, "He thinks he's big, calling a motorcycle a bike." "Ralph, you are sure to break your neck if you keep riding that thing," said his mother. "You said I could ride it," said Ralph suddenly. "You said I could ride it if I wore my crash helmet and kept both paws on the handle grips." "I know," admitted his mother, with a sigh. "I can't imagine what I was thinking." The grandfather clock began to grind and groan. All of Ralph's family was alert, and when the clock began to strike, they disappeared under chairs behind drapes. All except Uncle Lester, even though he looked nervous. "This is no life for a growing mouse," said Uncle Lester. "It is time you moved back upstairs to the mouse nest and helped lay supplies for the lean months between summer and the ski season. You know, nobody comes to this old hotel to spill crumbs as long as there's a vacant room in one of the new motels out on the highway." The clock finished striking midnight, and Ralph's relatives crept out of their hiding. "He won't," said one of the bigger cousins. "He won't because he's selfish." "You keep out of this," said Ralph. He is. He's just plain selfish," squeaked the little brothers and sisters and cousins. The night clerk stirred in his sleep, and all the mice froze into silence until the sound of snores came from the couch. All hotel mice know they are safe from people who are snoring. The argument continued. "He keeps everything for himself," complained a little brother. "That's right," agreed another. "He never gives any of us a ride on his motorcycle." "Now, Ralph," said his mother, "it wouldn't hurt you to give the little mice a ride every once in a while." "I thought you said the motorcycle was dangerous for riding," Ralph reminded his mother. "That's no way to talk to your mother," said Uncle Lester. "You don't have to speed. You can push your young relatives up and down the hall." "Push them?" squeaked Ralph in horror. "Push little mice up and down the hall in his beautiful motorcycle with a plastic seat and its pair of chrome mufflers? A motorcycle is not a kiddie car." "Now, Ralph, sharing your motorcycle won't hurt you one bit," said his mother. "Don't look so selfish." Me first, shrieked the mice, pushing and shoving. "Ralph, get that look off your face." Uncle Lester looked so stern that Ralph knew there was no way out. "Even the girls?" he asked. "Of course," said his mother. "Quiet, children, or you'll wake up the night clerk." Ralph wished the little mice would wake up the night clerk, so he would have an excuse for hiding his motorcycle. However, his young relatives, who were, in Ralph's opinion, a fearful bunch, were silent, and there was nothing for Ralph to do but boost the nearest one up onto the seat of the motorcycle. "Give me the crash helmet," demanded the passenger. "What are you waiting for?" asked Uncle Lester. "Let him wear it." Ralph removed the treasured helmet, placed it on the head of the small passenger, and wheeled the odd little mouse down the hall and back. More," demanded the passenger. "You had your turn," Ralph spoke shortly, as he looked with distaste at his younger relatives scrambling all over another in eagerness to be next. There were so many of them, pushing them up and down the hall would take all night. "Come on," he said crossly to his nearest cousin. He clapped the helmet on his head and boosted him in the plastic seat. "Let's get this over with." "Faster," demanded the cousin. "I want to go faster." "You be quiet," said Ralph. "You wanted to ride and you're getting it." Ralph soon found that pushing the motorcycle along the bare floor of the edge was easier than pushing it up the carpet. Up and down the hall he trudged, with one little mouse after another, while he longed to be riding off into the kitchen where the linoleum made the best speedway in the hotel. Up and down the hall plodded Ralph. With brothers, sisters, and cousins, he grew more and more rebellious as the stars outside the hotel grew dim above the pine trees. The motorcycle was his. It was given to him by the boy to ride, not to use as a kiddie car as a lot of wiggly, squirming little mice. A motorcycle was not a toy. Why couldn't his mother and Uncle Lester understand? Because they were too old to understand. Too old, too timid, and that's why. Ralph felt sorry for himself, caught as he between two generations of mice. Most of his own litter had died from eating poisoned grain put out by a particularly disagreeable cook. There was the older generation of mice who worried about the safety and being able to scrounge enough crumbs to tide them over the lean months between summer season and the ski season. Then there were the younger generation of silly little mice who were always busily wiggling, climbing all over one another, gobbling up crumbs as fast as they were brought to the mouse nest. Nobody understood Ralph, which was his whole trouble. Night was fading and the birds chirped out of the pines. Ralph thought the hotel was about to come to life. The night clerk soon would waken and close his book, and the cook would soon be rattling pans in the kitchen. A cousin, braver than most, came running down the hall where Ralph was really pushing the motorcycle. "You aren't fair," he scolded. "You've given him 3 rides, some of the others 2, and only me 1. Ralph stopped in his tracks. "Do you mean to stand there and tell me all of you have had more than 1 ride?" "Yes," was the answer, "and I'm going to tell Uncle Lester on you. You'll really catch it." Ralph was too angry to squeak. He snatched his helmet from the head of his passenger, tipped him onto the floor, mounted his motorcycle while taking the deep breath. Ralph shot down into the hallway. The first rays of light of morning filtered through the pines, which were filled with joyous chirping birds. The night clerk stirred. All the mice looked frightened and scuttled towards the stairs and the safety of their nests in the shredded Kleenex. The night clerk sat up, yawned, stretched, and scratched his chest, giving Ralph just enough time to garage his motorcycle in a dark corner under the television set before the last shadow of night faded up from the old hotel. Ready to rest and filled with bitter thoughts, Ralph set his crash helmet on the dusty carpet and sat down with his back resting against the front wheel of his motorcycle. The grown-up mice should not make him use his beautiful motorcycle as a toy to amuse a lot of squirmy, ungrateful little relatives, who were growing up and soon would insist on riding it themselves. And Uncle Lester would insist that Ralph let them. Well, he wouldn't. Never would he use his motorcycle as a toy. He did not care what Uncle Lester or anyone said. Ralph did not want to grow up to be a crumb-scrounging mouse like Uncle Lester. He did not want to settle down for the rest of shredded Kleenex behind the baseboard of a linen room. He wanted a life of speed and danger and excitement. He wanted to be free, to do as he pleased and to go where he pleased on a shiny red motorcycle. The clock struck 6, and in the distance, Ralph heard the notes of a distant bugle. This time, lively note that seemed to summons the excitement and adventure, and now that he knew where the notes came from, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Before the notes had died away, Ralph heard the laughter and shouts of medium-sized boys and girls, who must be about the same age as Keith. The boy had understood mice, and had given Ralph the motorcycle. The rousing notes of the bugle, and the laughter and shouting increased the feeling of rebellion within Ralph. As the last strains of the bugle call hovered over the clear mountain air, Ralph made up his mind. He was going to run away. Oh wow, that's an interesting place to end today's story. What did you think, Madam Owl? Yes, I know that made you hungry, but we'll see you on the next adventure, okay? And we'll see you on the next adventure, here with Wayne Reads. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again. Bye-bye!